And now, everyone, please put your hands together and give a warm welcome to your host.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome. I want to say a special welcome to those of you joining us online, and also to everyone here that's with us on campus today. So my name is Pat Bishop. I am the Director of Graduate Studies here at Full Sail University, and I'm going to be your host for this session, which is entitled You.com, How to Create a Powerful Personal Brand. So our guest today is Phil Pallen. Phil is a Los Angeles-based brand strategist and the owner of Phil Pallen Collective. So please put your hands together and welcome back to campus, Phil Pallen. Yay. All right.
Hey, everyone.
Well, let's go ahead and get started, because I know some of you are going to have questions when we're done. But first of all, first thing is, Phil, you graduated from Full Sail's Entertainment Business Master's program in 2011. You headed straight to Los Angeles. So what were the first few months like after graduation?
Oh, boy. Where do we begin? I actually remember being right here, right at this little mark right here, delivering my speech at graduation. This would have been, 2011. And I actually, within 5 minutes of finishing my speech, it was very dramatic, I left the stage and I actually worked it into my speech that I had to go to the airport because I booked the cheapest flight I could, because I had no money, to fly out to LA. And I had never even been to the West Coast. So I literally went from graduation speech, out those doors, to the airport to catch my flight to LA. And that was 5 years ago. So the first few months, I would be lying if I say that it was smooth, you know? And I'm so happy that I actually get to share the stage with you to talk about this, because Pat was, when I think about my Full Sail experience, which I'm sure we'll get into the specifics of it, and the takeaways and what I've learned in the last 5 years, and being able to come back now and share it with all of you in this room and also watching online, it's tough. You know, I had never been to California. Some of you may know my story, many of you may not, so I'll share the highlight reel, basically. I was in the running to become Charlie Sheen's social media intern at the peak of his craziness in the media. Within 2 months of graduating Full Sail, I made it from 90,000 people to the top 50. In all of this kind of wrap-up, ready for graduation, I became actually great friends with you, which I recommend. She's a busy lady, but this is one of many people you want to know on this campus before you graduate. And Pat was supporting me through this Charlie Sheen social media campaign that I had created. Full Sail was very supportive, and I got to film and do some cool stuff. And I ended up getting an opportunity to be an intern for Ryan Seacrest through some mutual connections. It's all who you know, as they say. I hate how cliche that is, but it's so true. So I got, this is the very short story, but the Charlie Sheen stuff combined with the Ryan Seacrest stuff, I got some press over this, and I meant to actually bring the article that actually got me fired. I got fired by Ryan Seacrest before I even started. So just picture this. Let's go back to this moment. 2 weeks, I'd never been to LA. 2 weeks before I'm set to graduate and move out to LA. I also don't drive, so I had, an apartment lined up right around the corner from E in LA. Had no idea anything about LA. Had no idea where the neighborhoods were, what was happening. I was like just Google mapping it, okay, right around the corner. And so then I'm at Universal Studios, and the VP at Ryan Seacrest Production calls me and says, "Phil, are you sitting down?" I thought he was going to call me to congratulate me, because I got him another wave of press, I was like, and he goes, "So we can't have you. We can't have you as an intern." I was like, "What?" And the first person I called was you. And I was like, okay, so my dream-like, setup post Full Sail is now gone. And the worst thing was I couldn't talk about it because they didn't want me talking anymore. So, which I clearly did too much of. So that was how I started. I pretty much started with nothing lined up. I was able to work with you to line something up in the interim, but Pat was my rock within, the first 3 months. Well, beyond. I mean, especially in those first few months, but we talked, once a month. And it was cool to be at a dinner last night with some grads to kick off Full Sail Hall of Fame. And it's interesting to hear other grads talk about the people that they keep in touch with at Full Sail. For me, that's you.
It's very important. Whatever you do, take his advice, because Jess Pollock from Career Development was also very important to Phil's efforts.
So I like that you start with that question, but you actually know the answer to it. You're tricky.
Well, so now that we know a little bit more about Phil, why do our students and our grads need to have a brand?
Yeah.
Need to be a brand?
We just did a little carpool on the way over here this morning with a few people that flew in for Full Sail Hall of Fame, and we were just talking in the car about how even when I graduated a few years ago, personal branding wasn't really a thing, but now it's a thing that everyone's talking about. And it's been interesting. It's only been 5 years since I graduated, right? Did I do the math correctly? Not my strong point. Yeah. So in 5 years, how this word has come to mean so much to everyone, it's been interesting. I started, when I moved out to LA, the most important lesson I learned, so I applied for jobs at agencies after I wrapped up my internship and couldn't get a job, couldn't get hired, didn't get responses from anyone. I was kind of on the clock. I had about 3 months in LA that I was subletting, and I knew that if I didn't figure it out in 3 months, then I was going back to Canada. So for any of you that are international students, you can relate to this. You take it for granted if you're from America, because you can just roll in and get a job when you want a job. If you're international, you're on the clock. To be valid for your student visa and your extension, you have to be doing something. So I was that total nerd. First day of Full Sail, I booked a meeting at Career Development. The first week, I think it was the first week that I came here as a student. But it was the smartest thing I ever did. Having a brand now is no longer an option. And when I moved out to LA, rather than going, okay, I'll just keep applying for jobs, I pretty much fell into doing my own thing, unintentionally. I did a workshop. I had a few people that came to me and they said, I really need your help with a website. And I was like, okay, I can do that. I can help you make a website. And that's really how it all started for me. Now I work with celebrities, public figures, politicians, professionals, clients all over the world to build personal brands. And I specialize in personal brands because it's what I love to do, and it's how I started. I think you all need to think about what is something people need. Think about your skill set. Think about being able to offer something tangible. That allowed me to stay in LA. It's a very, LA and New York, where we all want to go to work in the biz, it's hard because there's huge competition. So how do you differentiate? And for me, that differentiation was personal branding. And it makes me happy that now it's a term I can just throw out there and everyone already knows what it means. It's intimidating because it's something you have to have and it's something you need to put out there to impress. But we'll talk today about, I'll give you all the tips and tricks to build one so that you stand out from all the noise.
Well, I say we ask Phil to give us some of the tips, because really, share with us sort of the steps toward building your personal brand.
And this isn't like, curriculum that I learned and now I just regurgitate. This is something it's my philosophy. It's the foundation, the process that I follow when I work with clients, as I mentioned, all over the world. I have a little system that I teach at conferences and with clients. I follow this system myself when I'm building a brand. So it's great. This is great for students to think about. Some of you are probably, you could be brand new at Full Sail, you could be weeks away from graduation, but it's something that you need to be thinking about. There are two versions of ourselves. There's the in-person experience. So those of us in this room, we're sitting here, you're looking at me, making judgments. I'm looking at you, even though you don't realize it, but we can see all of you. And I make eye contact. And when we're in person, we have those beautiful little nuances. I get a sense of your personality. There's 2 versions. So that's version 1, the in-person experience and interaction. Version 2 is the online version. That's for all of you. But it's harder because now we're trying to create a relationship through a medium. And technology sits right in the middle of that, and it makes it a little bit more challenging. So personal branding, the best personal branding is when we recreate the in-person experience as closely as possible. Personal branding is when we recreate the in-person experience as closely as possible. So when we talk about the specific steps, I think of it in 3 stages, more or less. Positioning your brand. So what is it you do? Who are you and why should we care? That's the positioning. Once we know exactly what it is we're doing, and I'll give you a little formula for that, thinking about the positioning. In LA, when I moved there, I was like, well, there's agencies that people can hire to help them build a website and help them promote themselves, but there's no one helping people. And that's why I was like, that's what I want to do. In this job in social media, online marketing, I didn't have a huge amount of overhead, so I didn't have to go buy a bunch of gear. I just had to have a laptop and a brain. So I positioned my company where I saw a need. So the formula is something you love, something you're passionate about, something you love paired with something others need. That's your positioning. That's your brand. And it's not something you can just arrive at overnight. It's something you should be thinking about, and it should be evolving as you evolve. Right? You evolve as individuals. Oh my God, I look at my pictures from when I first graduated. Of course, I move out to LA and get headshots. I mean, your job in LA could be picking up garbage and you still have a headshot. And I look at them now and I'm like, wow, I look like a child. I've grown since then, but it's important that my online brand and my positioning evolves with that. So if you think about your positioning, this is step 1, something you love with something others need. If you don't account for something others need, then it's just a hobby. It's something you love, but it's not something that you can turn into a business. I'm passionate about this because this is how I started. This is how I created a business for myself and a lifestyle for myself without really doing it intentionally. I didn't graduate full sail and say, I'm going to start my own business. No, oh my God, I was too terrified to do that. So now to look back on it and go, wow, that's what actually happened is kind of crazy. But it all comes down to your positioning. Once you position your brand, you build something to show for it. Step 2, the build. Your brand identity, your website, your social media profiles, your photography. These are the elements that you build to show for what you are. And then the final step is promoting your brand. Once you've built the house, you stick a for sale sign out front and you make sure the people you want to target know who you are. And don't be afraid to rock a niche. In LA, I got my start helping TV hosts build their brands, very specific. But by not being afraid to have a niche or a niche, however you want to say it, by not being afraid to be something, I became, in essence, a few years in, the guy to call if you're a TV host in LA and you need a brand. Mm-hmm. So it all kind of comes full circle. And in the 5 years, it's cool to sit here with you and reflect. Those are the 3 steps that now I teach around the world. I've taught, Japan, and I just got back from Japan and Europe. I mean, lots of conferences, just got back from Vegas 2 days ago. From there to here, I teach this everywhere. And regardless of exactly what your brand is, these are the steps that you need to think about to actually implement it.
Awesome. So, any tips for students in terms of creating websites or show reels to basically show their stuff?
Yeah, there are some really good tools out there. Actually, tools that exist now that didn't exist when I was graduating. It really is easy to create a presence on the web without necessarily having to have coding skills, web design skills. I hate to say that because that's the nature of my business. But when you're launching, you probably don't have a huge amount of money to go hire someone, a consultant or a strategist to help you build your brand. It's kind of why you're here at Full Sail. You figure out what you're passionate about. It was in the business master's program where I figured out that branding was my jam. I'm like, this is what I'm good at. This is what I love to do. When you're graduating, I'll give you some specific tools. So you need a website. So you should already own your name domain. If you don't, you can go pick it up online. If it's not available, if your name is John Smith, you're probably not going to get johnsmith.com. So I would recommend getting creative. Do a little bit of name exploration to figure out how you can add some words to your name. It's or I'm, those are some quick tips I've seen people do. Or the. But do some research. The great thing about the internet is that everything's out there. So an idea is great, but an idea when paired with research is so much better. So you need a web presence, and website platforms specifically, there are two that come to mind. I'm a huge fan of Squarespace, which really wasn't even a thing when I graduated. It's amazing. Even for client projects, I would say 95% of the websites that we do for clients are built on this platform simply based on how easy it is to manage and update it. They give you templates to start with, and you can further customize that depending on how fancy you are with your coding and your design skill set. So I love Squarespace. I also love a platform that I discovered pretty recently called branded.me. And now I know how big you are. Do you still tell people about LinkedIn?
Every chance I get.
First day, quick sidetrack story, Pat Bishop comes in, I'm like, oh, Pat Bishop. And she gives a talk, and I'm like, oh my God, okay. And she tells us, go sign up for LinkedIn. And it was the first time I had heard of LinkedIn. And get to your first 100, right? So now you can actually turn your LinkedIn profiles into a little mini website on a platform called branded.me. I'm actually working with the team over at branded.me as a mentor. It's brand new. I'm really excited. So that's a really great platform for students. You could literally work on your LinkedIn profile, work on the copy, work on some of the cool additional features that you can spice up your profile with pictures and videos, and then go to branded.me and turn it into a website for now. And then you could work on, a Squarespace site if you want to further customize it with, video banners. There's so many cool things that you can do nowadays on the web.
And get recommendations while you're here from faculty that you work closely with, just people that you know.
Oh yeah,
get
people
the
read that.
recommendations too.
Mm-hmm.
Great. So, what are employers looking for nowadays?
That's a tricky question because I am a little different in that most people who do what I do or have created a company typically work for an agency prior. Come from the corporate world, or you kind of learn the game and then you go off and do your own thing. That's most people's story. It's not mine. I just, as you know, started what I created from scratch simply based on the need that I identified. Crafted a brand around what I knew people would pay money for because I needed to make a living, and married that with what I'm super passionate about. But I know from friends and I know from being in the industry, I know what people are looking for, whether it's an employer, a casting director, an agent, a manager, any kind of gatekeeper we call them, which are the people with the power to give you that next leg up, depending on what your career, your brand is. I really believe that people are looking for consistency between the in-person experience and online. Exactly my whole philosophy. I think people look for that. When they look you up, and they're going to type your name into Google, and they're going to see what they can find, what kind of dirt we can find on you, base a first impression or first opinion on that. And then if they like what they see, then they're going to call you in and they're going to meet you in real life. If there's consistency between those two steps, that's a positive first impression that you're leaving them with. So I'm not the guy on this stage that's going to say, don't post this and don't post that, and you may hear from people that tell you, like a parent would, what to post and what not to post online. I'm not that guy. I am instead going to say, be conscious of what your brand is and know that everything out there that your name is attached to is some part of that first impression. So regardless of what you want to go do and what industry you want to work in, I mean, there's controversial stuff and there's interesting things that people do. I'm not going to tell you to not do something because it's wrong. If you're crafting a brand, be aware of what the puzzle pieces are that exist to help give that first impression. And I think employers are looking for consistency when they meet you in real life. Think about, it's kind of like dating. So if you see someone's profile and they look really hot, and you're like, okay, cool, I got to meet this person. And then you meet them in real life, and you've been catfished, isn't that the term? Yeah, so the photo looks nothing like how they look in real life. That's not a positive experience. Now take that and make it related to the professional world. It's really not that different.
Right.
Except it takes into consideration your web presence, your reel. Don't be afraid to have a stance, a position. Have some fun with your copy. In addition to consistency, I would say employers and gatekeepers and influencers, they are looking for people who are memorable. Particularly in New York and LA, when you apply for a job, especially if it's online, because that's easy, they get a stack of resumes like this, right? And so we would all love to think that they're looking for the best applicant. They're not. They're looking for the worst applicants that they can crumple up into a piece of paper and play basketball with, because we need to whittle this pile down to 10 solid people. So they're not looking in the first few rounds of this, they're not looking for the best people, they're looking for the worst people to get rid of. So be critical about your presence, your resume. How do you represent yourself? Is there anything on there that gives me a reason to reject you? Because that's what they're looking for, because simply based on the attractiveness of everyone wanting to move to New York and LA. So be aware of that. Share your resume with a few friends. For the love of God, go to career development. I said to Pat jokingly last night, and it's only a half joke, that if I meet a student, and I get to meet lots of students, that's what I love about coming back here. If I meet a student that's in their final months of graduation and they have not been to career development, you are already someone that I know I'm not going to like. Sorry, but it's true. It's the most amazing resource on this campus that, for me, has led to lifelong relationships and friendships. I still get on the phone with my career development people. We tweet, we're active on social media. They still send me interesting stuff. They still send me job-related stuff, and I send people to them. It's just amazing, and it's the thing that you are here for. Yes, you're here for school, but more importantly, you're here for connections and relationships. This is the entertainment business. Please take advantage of it. There's my little rant. Woo.
Well,
we knew it was coming at some point.
I know. Well, I think it's really important. A lot of you, how many of you are going to graduate within the next 2 months? Wow. So for these folks, if you were sitting in their seats, what would you recommend that they do before they graduate and then immediately upon or after graduation?
Yeah. So definitely go see career development, make a best friend there, because they only have limited number of hours in the day. Make sure they're thinking about you. It's just like any relationship you have. I mean, I get to do all kinds of cool stuff nowadays in LA. I get to go on TV. I get to do workshops. I'm aware of who all of these people are that help me get to where I am, and I make sure I stay on their radar. So start doing it now with your career development team, and give some thought to how you're positioning yourself so that when you go out there, it makes sense. They can help you arrive, and I think even your professors and
Yes.
instructors can help you arrive at what that passion is. That's why they're here. I think the course material is an exercise to figure out what it is you're passionate about so that you can go do it. Because if you go out there wishy-washy, people don't have a lot of time. Time is a limited resource, right? There's unlimited content and people, it seems. There's only a limited number of jobs, a limited number of opportunities, and most importantly, limited time and attention. So use your time here to figure out what your passion is. I'll say that with a caveat. Don't put so much pressure on yourself either to know exactly what it is the moment you step out of this room after graduation. Because to be honest, I didn't know. And I needed a few months of tough months to figure it out, to hustle. That is a vital step of this whole process. I wouldn't be where I am now, and I certainly, I'm on the path to success, I guess, but I don't consider myself successful yet. I'm 27. I've only been out of here for 5 years. So I'm on the path, I think, but I don't stop there. And I think there's a lot of other perfectionist and career-driven people in this room that probably think the same way. But know that you don't arrive, in this cushy little spot overnight. So you've got to hustle. You've got to account for that and know that it's coming. Figure out what you're passionate about. Make sure there's a presence and you communicate that on the web in a fun, memorable way. And I think those are the fail-safe ingredients to have success as soon as you go out and do it.
Well, a lot of you are going to be applying for jobs. So what are employers today looking for?
I think it really comes back to being memorable. It's so interesting because, and I'll kind of explain just a story based on what I've learned, specifically in the hosting world. It's kind of the same way, right? I've worked a lot with talent. Actually, so to even preface that, I moved out to LA thinking that I was going to be a TV host. So shout out to Tracy Wu, who I love on campus. If you know Tracy, she's like the face and voice of Full Sail. And I actually reached out to Tracy when I was a student here, and I was like, you are cool. I want to be a host. I want to be just like you. What do I do? And now Tracy jokes because she turned on Access Hollywood a few months ago and saw me talking about, Justin Bieber or something. And she's like, wait, what? I love Tracy. But with talent and job applicants, the ones who get to the next level are the ones who make a memorable first impression. Now, I've said that a few times up here. Let's deconstruct that further. I think every single person in this room is a mix of two ingredients. You're a mix of content and you're a mix of personality. I call it like a content to personality ratio. This is something I actually discussed when we did the U.com session a few years ago. That video is still on YouTube, by the way, and gets a ton. Some of you, have you guys seen that one from a few years back? I'm pretty bossy in that video. It starts with me, and was feeling especially spicy that day.
Yes. Always.
Yeah, always. You never know what you're going to get. But I talk about that, and I think it's still especially relevant as now we're building the consistency between the web presence and the in-person experience. You're a mix of content and personality, and think of yourselves in this way. And don't just come up with this ratio on your own, because one of the things that's hardest is to be self-aware. When you think about it, and you're in a job, you're in a talent position as a host or an actor, you are the product. So that's hard. And you rely on others to give you objective feedback. And even when I'm running a workshop, I always remind people, I'm not the boss here. My opinion is not the most important opinion. Sure, I brand for a living, but everyone else's opinion in this room is just as important because they represent someone who's objective. So not like mom or dad or family who's going to say they love you regardless of what you're putting out there. Get some objective feedback on that first impression, on your website, on your reel. Use your peers for that.
Yeah.
I throw a workshop with random people, and I say, okay, let's go around the room and describe this person in 3 words. Right? Even if it's not someone you know, there's still, the more you do that, you'll start to see what's consistent. What's going to help you is to become self-aware, and it's the hardest thing. Confession, I don't even do my own branding on my own. And this is what I do for a living. I can brand anything under the sun, but I struggle when it comes to my own stuff. And so I have a team on my staff, my trusted team of creatives that help me execute and give me objective feedback on how I've evolved as a brand. So then I can make sure I'm communicating that every single year. I do new photos every single year. I do, change my website around. It seems like I'm doing that all the time because it's just how I am. But I rely on objective feedback to figure out who I am and to become self-aware. And content, personality, we're all a special makeup of those two ingredients. Use that self-awareness to start to create content, to start to inject it with personality so that you are memorable. That is my opinion on what employers are looking for, and kind of breaking it down almost to a science. So we're not just talking about it today, and then you're all going to go on with your day and not think about it. When I get up here, it's a privilege to be able to share information with you. So I actually want to give you tangible steps to go and make this happen.
Great advice. So a lot of our students are possibly thinking about starting their own company or going freelance. So what advice can you give them in terms of how to price things, how to create business opportunities for themselves, how to network? Just give us your take on that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I wish that I had the secret ingredient. I have formulas and steps and little systems for almost everything to help people who don't know what they're doing actually execute. But I think it's interesting because the word freelance doesn't really have a lot of positive connotation with it. It almost like if you say you're a freelance, it's like, well, why don't you work for someone? That really bugs me. So let's address that right now. Don't be afraid to start your own thing. Maybe I'm biased because that's what I did and it worked for me. But if you really give thought to your positioning, you don't necessarily have to go out and work for someone. I'm not sure that I would have, well, no, I am sure. I am sure that I wouldn't have had the confidence to say that on stage or to anyone 5 years ago when I was graduating. I didn't really know what it was like out there. I would even argue that there is more job security in creating something to show for yourself than there is in going and working for someone. Think about that for a second. I mean, I have a pulse on the industry, and I can't believe how many people are going from big corporations and agencies to starting their own business, becoming entrepreneurs. Another word that I actually don't really like. I don't like the word freelance. I don't like the word entrepreneur. Because entrepreneur sounds desperate, doesn't it? It's like, I'm an entrepreneur. That automatically means you're not successful yet. That's not the case. That's the connotation it kind of has. But don't be afraid in 2016, 2017 to go and start your own thing. Yep. There's a lot of people making it work. And what's beautiful about the possibilities in a lot of jobs, not all of them, but it doesn't necessarily require a lot of overhead. I didn't need anything really other than a brain and a laptop to start my job. That's not the case if you are doing tech or you're doing recording arts or you're doing anything that requires a lot of equipment. That's an expensive investment, but you can still get a loan, you can buy what you need, set up your business if you're confident in what you're delivering. Your passion is important, but the need you're satisfying from a business standpoint is far more important. And what's great about being an entrepreneur, creating something to show for yourself, means that you're in control of your life. I would be the worst employee now. If I had to go work for someone, I would be fired the same day that I would be hired. For someone to tell me what to do, I'm like, oh no, honey, I'm in control. Because that's what I'm used to, and I love it. last week I booked a flight to England. I don't even know why. I don't even have a good reason other than I got a really good deal on a flight. By the way, you should listen to my podcast. Latest episode is how to get great deals on flights. Self-promotion injection right there. Point is, all the money in the world is great as you grow your businesses and become known for whatever it is you do. But what's more important than all of that? Freedom. So I advise, and I'm a little biased because it's worked for me and it's been a wonderful thing. You can go out there and create something for yourself if that's what you want to do. But make sure that passion, great. Satisfying a need, better.
So you talked about the pros of starting. Now, on the other side, what are the cons? What do people just need to be aware of? What our students need to be aware of?
Of course. This is the fine print at the bottom that people don't read. Like me, I don't read it, it's not easy because the bonus of working for someone or working for a production company or a bigger organization, a network, means that you have security, obviously. So as you're early on in your career, and I totally support people, by the way, that say, Phil, I'm not quite ready to go do my own thing. I think I'd benefit from going and working for someone else for a few years prior. My best friend that now works full-time with me did exactly that. And it's great because she has a corporate experience, agency experience that really benefits us now as we grow and scale. That I don't have, because I was a bit of a wild child. But yeah, I mean, the cons are there's not really any kind of safety net, in case something doesn't work right away. I didn't have that. I didn't have like super wealthy parents to just bail me out if something didn't work, which I'm grateful for now. Even in high school, I was so jealous of all these people that, parents just, pay your cell phone bill and do all these things. I did pretty much everything on my own and still have never asked my parents for money, which I'm proud of. That's the thing. You don't have to go out and spend a lot of money. Just be smart. Be smart as you grow. One of the little luxuries for me, actually, when I knew that what I was doing was working, I don't have a car. I've lived in LA for 5 years without a car. People think I'm crazy. I am kind of crazy. But when I started, there wasn't Lyft and there wasn't Uber. Now I definitely don't need a car. And now more than ever, millennials are like, nope, don't need one. What an unnecessary expense. But for me, one of the little luxuries of when I first started, when I moved to LA, I took the big blue bus everywhere. Oh my God, if I had to get anywhere, I had to take the day off. Like grocery shopping, 3 hours, crazy. And one of the first little moments for me that most people would take for granted are, I can expense Lyft and Uber trips whenever I need to go anywhere and not like have to do the math of my bank account. It's such a small little thing. And by the way, I spend far less on Lyft and Uber each month than I would pay for a car, gas, insurance, all that stuff. So I recommend it. People will say you're crazy, but it's just because they don't know any different. New York especially, LA I would say even now, you don't necessarily need a car. But there are cons. Yeah, you may fall flat and it's going to be stressful and you're not going to be sure who to call. If you have a solid support system around you, which I would argue should include your most memorable and best connections from Full Sail, be it fellow students, be it career development, instructors. If you build this support system around you, you're part of mine, then you have the positive interactions and feedback that help you persevere.
Good. So I have one last question for Phil. I know some of you are really anxious to ask him questions, but I love this question. Phil gave me this question to ask. I love it. I love it.
I'll act surprised, Pat.
If you go back in time and give your student self some advice, what would you say?
Oh, that's a great question, Pat. That's a great question. I actually think we've answered that in some of the discussions we've already had. I got a chance to talk today about what I'm really passionate about, and I get fired up about this stuff because the position that you're all in is very real to me. It's relatable. I know what that feeling was like, and it's terrifying. I mean, I had been to Florida before, like I'm from Canada, so I spent we went on a vacation to Florida every year, Disney World, etc. But so Florida became comfortable for me within the year of being here. I loved it. I loved my year at Full Sail, loved my year living here. But I had never been to LA. This was totally foreign to me. So I think a lot of what we've discussed in terms of how you think about yourselves would answer that question. The advice would be, don't be afraid to start something on your own. Don't be afraid to be an entrepreneur. Don't be afraid to have a stance, an opinion, a perspective on your work and what you're passionate about. Your bio, for example, shouldn't just be a list of credentials and what you're passionate about, and you like long walks on the beach. Like, no one cares. Your bio should include your perspective. What's your opinion on the industry? What is your motivation to do the work that you do? What inspires you? You'll arrive at that the more you do it, and actually you'll develop it as you develop yourselves in your career. For me, that sentence I say once a day, the best online branding is when we recreate the in-person experience. When my team hear me say that, all the eyeballs roll, because they're like, here he goes again, soundbite Phil, But that's my brand sentence. Like, that's my passion. That motivates everything I go to do. So the advice to myself would be, don't be afraid to be an entrepreneur. Starting your own thing is okay. Having consistency between your online presence and the in-person experience is now easier than ever with some of the tools that I named. And if you missed that part, rewind, because we talked about it. I think everything we've touched on is great advice for people now that can go and do this and not be, hopefully, if I've made an impression, it's hopefully that you're a little less terrified of going out and making all of this happen. It is terrifying, but let's just acknowledge that and accept it. And for those of you who have not been to career development yet, remember, if we're going to be friends, you have to go be friends with them. Our friendship is dependent on that, okay?
Okay. So we have microphones in each aisle here. For those of you that might have questions for Phil, please go out, if you'll step over to the microphone. You can, yeah.
Hey, Phil. Thanks for coming back. I'm over here.
Oh, thank you. I'm like, where did he go?
Thanks for coming back. I actually saw you a couple of years prior to starting my brand.
Cool.
And since then, I've developed a online presence known as Knee Deep Audio. We offer contractual agreements to independent game developers in sound design and implementation.
There's your brand sentence, promo, good for you.
What I'm getting at, you talked about content and the balancing between that and your personality. When your content becomes, you've got quite a bit of content. How do you filter that? Do you filter it by progression of showing early work and where you are at now, or do you put all your best work up front and center for your clientele to see?
That is a great question. And I like all of those ideas, and it's going to evolve. So there isn't really a blanket answer for that. It's going to depend on your brand. It's going to depend where you're at. I can speak to that because it's something I'm going through right now. I am jazzed at this point in time because I can look back at the work that I've done in the last 6 months and say that the branding work that we've put out, not me, because I used to do everything when I started. It was the Phil Show, and now I've got designers all over the world that help me execute on my ideas. And I'm so proud of the work that I've done in the last 6 months that I can't wait to put it out into the world in the next month. So for me, I'm editing what exists to show for me, and it's going to be all brand new projects. So what's out there now, is actually more of like, you kind of, when you start, you have everything there because you're like, look at me, I'm doing this. Just as a reminder, like, this is what I do. Here's everything, proof. Oh my God, everything I've done. Plaster over here, you know. It's like, please believe me, I'm a brand strategist. But then you get to a point where you do it and you continue to do it and you get better at it. And then you have the luxury of editing. Even taking old content. I have content that I created years ago that I totally forgot about, and then people will call me and they'll say, Phil, I was reading a blog post about how to get into social media management for celebrities. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that article. It's still out there and it's still working for me. But you can take some of your old content and make it relevant. I cringe at some of my old blog posts. I'm like, oh God, and then, stuff about Twitter. I have a book about Twitter. This year I'm actually, we'll be relaunching it with some of the new ideas. But so you're constantly editing and evolving that. You should never stay static. You are growing as individuals, as personal brands, so should your presence online that exists to show that. Really good question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hi, Phil. My name is Tracy.
Hey.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, what do you do for inspiration on, how to stay ahead for your content, like your website? What are some tips and tricks? I feel like I've been in a rut as far as creative ideas, so.
Ruts are not allowed.
Okay.
The internet is your oyster. So I spend a lot of time on websites like Behance and Pinterest. I am the Pinterest king, self-proclaimed. If you don't follow me on Pinterest, you should. But even in the last year, I've really cleaned up my Pinterest and stayed active to make sure that I have examples of great branding. That's my brand. So I use my social media platforms with purpose. I give a purpose to each one so that it's motivation for me to update it, and it's also motivation for you to follow me because you see something concrete that I'm doing. I get inspiration from online, and it's all out there. I also travel a lot, and that's not something I could do early on in my career because I was just trying to pay my rent. Now I have the luxury to be able to travel, and because my business is mobile, I will just sublet my apartment or just find a great deal on Airbnb. I spent the month of September in Sweden. It was so nice. I went a whole month without having to hear about Donald Trump or Kim Kardashian. Hello, reward. So I travel, I get inspiration around the world. I feel particularly for design. Europe is where it's at. All my designers are in Europe for my specific agency. And then I go to Asia for inspiration on tech and forward thinking, software, all kinds of cool stuff. But you probably won't be able to do that when you graduate. You'll get to the point where you will be able to do that, particularly if you're in a mobile business. But the internet is your oyster. So everything is out there. Look at blogs and great examples of branding. Find your favorite little resources. And what I do is I create a secret Pinterest board that only I get to see where I save examples of things that I like. And that means after 6 months of doing that, you've got this killer resource for you and you only, where you can go back and start to find that inspiration you need for whatever it is you're creating.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go over here.
How you doing, Phil? My name's Darren. I understand what you're saying. You kind of have to balance out between your personal you with multiple people you're talking to as opposed to your web aspect of it. Mm-hmm. So my real question is, when you say content, are you necessarily putting a filter on how you are viewed socially on the web as opposed to you are personally? Because you could talk to somebody face to face and say one thing, and then you feel as though you shouldn't have to change that because it kind of changes who you are as a person. Mm-hmm. But since you may receive the backlash aspect of it because you vocalized yourself in that medium.
Yeah.
So is it a battle with the sense of filtering what you're saying in content, or do you feel as though your confidence should still go on beyond that regardless?
The answer to that is being self-aware is the most important thing. So that's a good point, because I don't want to empower someone today and say your opinion is really important, you need to get it out there. Not if people can take that too far and become really obnoxious. That's not what I'm suggesting. The important thing is to make sure people know your perspective, because that's something that makes you unique. Where content alone is not unique, but what makes it unique is your personality and your take on things. So I wrote a book on Twitter, which I think is, that subject is so boring. I have the shortest attention span in the world. So like to have me write a book about social media, that's so boring. So I took it and I made it fun. I injected my personality. So the book is not called How to Tweet. The book is called Shut Up and Tweet, because it sounds like it's coming from me, right? So it's a balance of all of that. So to know your perspective and to be appropriate when you're injecting that, you don't want to go into a meeting with an employer or someone that's going to give you a job and say, well, this is me and this is what I want to do and this is what I want to accomplish. Nope. No one cares about you. They're looking at it making an investment in you to work, for their company, and that's I talked about that in the last session. That's how you need to think about yourself. It's a balance, but the point of it is to be self-aware so you know what's appropriate, what's not, how to balance content and personality, and creating those relationships.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Phil. I wanted to ask you, because you pointed out earlier in the discussion that you were talking about how you got the opportunity to almost become an intern for Ryan Seacrest, and you got it through knowing people. What do you recommend for us as students to get into, other than the career development, like clubs or organizations that we can intern in order to get those bonds from when we graduate to get jobs?
Yeah. I mean, all of that stuff exists here for that purpose, right? I mean, actually, I think you would almost be better to answer this than me. You wouldn't have made, it was you who made the connection.
Well, Phil came to see me. He was having some issues in one of his classes anyway, I won't go into details, but that's how we met. He came by my office, and he started talking. I said, well, what do you, tell me what are your aspirations? What do you want to do when you graduate? And he told me, I want to be the next Ryan Seacrest. Well, my little brain's spinning because just days before that, I was meeting with someone who worked for me who said his best friend since he was in elementary school was the CEO of Ryan Seacrest Productions. Okay? What do you think that first call was that I made? And that's how it happened. Just asking questions, being interested in other people.
But I went in and gave you my answer. What do you want to be? And so it's changed. I do not want to be the next Ryan Seacrest. And actually, he really irritates me now. He fired me, but he also irritates me.
But you wanted to be a host.
Wanted to be a host.
That's what you wanted to be.
Wanted to be a host. And that since evolved, as it will, but that wouldn't have happened had I not put that idea out to you. You got to put your ideas out there. And the whole goal, I mean, you're going to forget a lot of the stuff you learn in your courses. Some courses are going to be like, law for me. I still look at my law books all the time, and there are courses from Full Sail that I reference daily, but there are others that I don't. But that for me, I look at it like this. That's an exercise. That's an excuse to have all of you here in this room right now, to be present with people that you're sitting beside right now that could be famous, that could be rich, that could be a leader in the business, a leader in the industry. That could happen. Full circle. I mean, like with Tracy, I went and met Tracy. I was like, oh my God, you're such a cool host. Now we're really good friends. And she sees me on TV. It can come full circle. The excuse is, school is the excuse to be here and to be present, make sure everyone knows who you are and that what you put out there represents you.
Okay, thank you.
Over here.
Hi, Phil. My name is Antoinette. As a fellow Canadian, how was building your brand here? Because I want to build my own company as well, but how was the process for you?
Here's what you should do. The Canadian dollar is really bad right now, so stay in America, make lots of money, and then you can go home and retire when you're 70, okay? So it's for international students, it's harder because America is not made to keep people here. You have to really work for it. I mean, I've spent a lot of money on lawyers for all my immigration and work visa and green card and all this stuff. It's hard. And people say, oh, you're from Canada. Oh, it's easy. That's like basically, that's like a state, the northern state, right? I'm like, not quite. It's hard, but it's possible. So the reality is I know more Canadians and more international students that have left the States than have stayed, But if it's something you really want, you can make it work. It's very doable. So that's a whole other political conversation of like, I really believe, the country's not set up to keep people here. It's easier to have to leave than it is to stay. But having the support of the international department here was very, very helpful. I became friends with them too. It's just how I kind of work. I just roam around and make friends with everyone. But to know how the system works, I now feel like I could be an immigration attorney. I shouldn't because I'm not licensed or I didn't go to school for it. But now having gone through the process, to know OPT, student visas, green card, all this kind of thing, that's the additional kind of baggage that you have no choice but to deal with. But it should motivate you further to build your brand, to get in there, line up an internship as soon as you can so you don't have to worry about the pressure of that, and to use every day you have here to make that impression that's going to keep you in the country.
All right, thank you.
Of course.
Hi, Phil. Amazing session. Also international. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, my question is, what do you say to a person that's 27 years old, like you, didn't grow up with social networks, so would you say that your personal brand is based on LinkedIn, your website, or do you have to be around all the social media world? Like, I just have a Facebook page, my LinkedIn, and probably a website, but should you be everywhere in the social media world?
No. Here's why. Unless you have a little mini agency you've created to manage your personal brand with 20 employees active on every single social media platform. Is that what you have? No? Didn't think so? Yeah, we don't have that. You should prioritize. Because we're individuals, we have a limited number of time. You're doing courses, you're busy. There's only so many hours in the day. So Full Sail has a social media department, a whole department dedicated to that. We don't. We're individuals, so we need to prioritize your platforms. It's better to be a rock star on 3 platforms than it is to be mediocre on 10. So figure out your positioning to know what it is you're going to do, who are you, and why should I care. Once you figure that out, then give some consideration to all the platforms available to you, particularly some of the newer ones that are easier to build a presence and easier to grow faster. Like, I find YouTube very hard now. Like, I missed the boat on YouTube as a content creator. If I go create content, it's so much harder to stand out because everyone is doing it. But there are some newer platforms like Periscope that I've explored that it's been much easier for me to make a splash on that because there's less competition. But figure out 3. Focus on 3 that are going to work really well for you. If you're very visual, then Pinterest is great. You can kind of go through all of them and figure out if you're a content creator or a host. Snapchat is also great. You can use these to augment your brand and complement through content who it is you are. But focus on 3. Don't put too much pressure on yourself to run a little mini agency and be active on all of them and do a really good job on all of them because it's not realistic.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello, Phil.
Hi.
I am Allure Rivers. How are you? You
I'm
guys
doing
can
well.
follow me at Allure Rivers. I am an indie pop rock artist. He literally just took my question. But because I am an artist, where should I be far as social media? Because I feel like I'm all over the place. And it's hard trying to put contact here. Did I put something here? Trying to remember, did I put something here? Where should I go? Because he took my question, so I had to come up with a new one real quick.
Yeah. Think about the platforms that people are going to go to find your art or to find the next big thing, and where you can visually and through content make a really strong first impression. Twitter is not going away anytime soon in relation to the role it plays with politics and with entertainment, live tweeting for artists. I think Twitter's a really good one for you. It's also a great way to network with people. Yep. Facebook's like your close-knit group of friends, and if a stranger adds you on Facebook, you're kind of like, wait, who are you? Why are you trying to get in my life? But on Twitter, it's more like an airport. It's like a hub where there's people moving in all different directions with all different purposes, but it's okay. It's acknowledged as a hub, and networking and engagement with strangers is totally okay. So I think Twitter is important for you. SoundCloud, if you're an artist, is a social media platform specifically for audio and for artists. I'll let you pick the third one, because it's going to depend on your brand and what it is you're creating. I don't have all the answers. I can point you in the right direction, but I'm a brand therapist, not a brand dictator. So really, it's not my brand, it's yours. So you have to arrive at what excites you and what it is you're building. You have to be so excited about it that you do it every single day with passion and excitement. So that hopefully gets you thinking in a few directions.
Yes. Thank you.
Over here.
Hey, Phil.
Hey.
When you first started your company, what were the first few steps you took to find potential clients and convince them to hire you, since you didn't have a history of getting people to give you money and all that?
Yeah, I just kind of went like this with a big smile. No, it's hard. It's really hard. Don't you hate that employers are looking for experience? And how are you supposed to get experience if no one will hire you?
Right.
Constantly build your case like a lawyer would to argue why you're the best or why you're worthy of consideration. Working specifically with hosts taught me that you're not always going to get your gig, your first big break, to just automatically have something to show for what you do. So you may need to exaggerate a little bit at the beginning, or go create a fake reel or a fake TV spot. That's what a lot of hosts do. They'll create a reel. They'll get together with a friend who you trust to film and a microphone so it sounds good, and they'll create a reel. Mm-hmm. That's a great starting point. Pull together some of the projects that you're really proud of and that you share with others that you've done here at Full Sail. People are looking for confidence in what you create. They're looking to have the confidence in that what you've created is something that you can then do for them. I always remind photographers specifically that you're going to get hired if I go to your website and I have the confidence that I can hire you now to get that. That's how you have to think about it. So it doesn't really matter when you're launching to be able to name drop big fancy brands. And you won't be able to name drop and be able to say, I work with all these fancy brands to start. To start, you have to have something to show, even if these are projects that you've created here.
Your portfolios.
Exactly. It's building a portfolio, and that's exactly what you do at Full Sail. So that's really, and constantly evolving that and editing it and making sure what is out there represents you. Don't be afraid to create stuff that might not be a legitimate project, but to be honest, the interviewer or employer might not even notice.
Thank you.
Hi, we have a couple of online questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Hello, all of you online.
Thanks, Phil. This question actually comes from Knight Zhang, who's majoring in mobile development. And he asks, do you have any experience facing challenges that were so intense during that time you were going through it that it challenged your own personal values and beliefs? And if so, how did you tackle it and overcome it?
Wow, that's a deep question online. That's deep. No, I didn't ever let anything really shake me that much because I'm so confident in my passion. Being at Full Sail allowed me, more importantly than obtaining knowledge, it allowed me to obtain knowledge about myself, to figure out what I was so passionate about that I sound kind of like a brat to say no. I haven't had anything challenge me to that degree because I've positioned myself so that there's nothing that can challenge me to that degree. You're gonna be challenged. There are gonna be people that are gonna challenge you. I mean, it's a tough world, right? There's gonna be people that are gonna ask you to do things or ask you to participate in things that maybe go against your values. I've had clients approach me and really want to work together and offer to pay me a lot of money, but if it's not something I'm passionate about, I don't do it. And I consider myself to be in a position of luxury at this point in time when I can say no to a project because it doesn't interest me.
Right.
But I've had clients in industries that I'm not crazy about, like weird, like network marketing and stuff like that I just don't like. And I've had for me, strange religious, weirdness stuff. And I'm like, no, that just doesn't fit with who I am. So I don't do projects like that. Stay true to who you are, know who you are so you know what to stay true to. But again, if you've positioned yourself properly and you satisfy a need from a business standpoint, there is built-in need and interest in what you offer. You don't have to spend as much time marketing and advertising who you are because you automatically satisfy a need that exists. If you can do that, you will be challenged far less. If you're challenged often, it's a time to take a moment and go, wait, maybe there's legitimacy to this and I need to slightly reposition.
Good advice. Any other questions from online? No?
We do have another online question, actually, if Phil doesn't mind.
No, oh gosh, I could answer questions all day.
Well, thank you. So one of our online students wrote that she's a late bloomer. She's later in life.
Great.
And she's figured out now what she's passionate about. She's 4 months into her full sail program, and she wants to know what advice she would have for someone at her age to jumpstart her career.
Starting right now, we are not going to talk about her age from this point moving forward because her age does not matter. Your age does not matter. And there are other people that would argue that sure, it takes longer to learn. You know what? She really hates when I do this, but I have to pick on my mom, who's in the front row, who is, how old are you, 52? Sorry, I just told the world. But my mom a year ago didn't really even know how to navigate a computer too well, which drove me nuts, no patience. But you know what? Bought a laptop, and does age matter? No, it matters. Motivation to learn matters, because now you work for me, and now I take credit when I talk about Pinterest. I'm always like, yeah, I pin every day, and then there's this one in the front row. No, you don't, because she does. But you've learned how to do it. I believe, and I would argue that age does not matter. Your age does not matter. My grandparents have learned how to text. And I'm so impressed. They use all the emojis. I never in a million years would have thought that was possible. Okay, so age does not matter. Your tangible skill set matters. The skill set you take, you learn at Full Sail, or you use Full Sail as a way to cultivate it, maybe it's web design or whatever it is. You leave here if you have a tangible skill set. That is what matters to land your first few gigs. They're not going to say, what was your favorite course when doing your master's or your undergrad? No one cares. No one cares. They're going to say, how do your skills help me complete this? And how much do I have to pay you? You know, don't worry about your age. From now moving forward, it does not matter. Don't let it matter.
Great. Here, take one here.
Hi, my name is VT Esther. Oh, wow, my voice.
Oh, yeah, it's here. We can hear you.
So I had a question about personal branding and social media. Do you think that you need to have your face always be out there, on your social media, or can you just showcase your work and you don't have to have such a...
Going to depend on your brand. Mm-hmm. I think that people, regardless of your brand, I think people go to your website and try and find a photo of you. Not because they're trying to date you or figure out if you're hot. What they're trying to do is they're trying to connect online. They're trying to experience what you would experience in real life. So if I meet you in real life, like right now, hi, I see you face to face. Online, I would suggest having a photo of you on your bio page, 9 times out of 10. There's 1 in 10 chances where it's not important to have a photo of you, but I think it helps because it feels more like real life. That doesn't mean you need to plaster your face everywhere. If you're not the product, it should probably be photos of the product. It's something to account for just as you figure out how to communicate your brand. It's going to depend on exactly what it is you do. But yeah, I would go out and say, yes, I think at least one photo of you is helpful, if relevant, 9 times out of 10, because people are looking for that, that experience that exists in place of being able to be face-to-face like this.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
We'll take this question.
Hi, Phil. My name is Sierra. First, I'd like to thank you for all your awesome tips so far.
Of course.
I actually graduate from digital art and design March 25th, so it's very soon. And I've been to career development, so we can be friends.
Okay, we can be friends. Good. Okay.
So my only question is, do you have enough time while you're here to have coffee or something, since you said it's all about who you know?
Yeah. Look at you. Look at you go.
Phil has a green room going on. Just check on Connect, because he'll be there doing that. Just
awesome.
Having one-on-ones and...
Yeah, it's all on there. They have me super busy here this week, which I certainly don't mind. So there's going to be tons of opportunity to chat. I was supposed to do, I have books coming too, that I was going to set up a little traveling road show, and they'll be for sale. Like, when are we doing that?
I think we're doing it Thursday at 4 o'clock in the EB lobby. We'll try to get an announcement on Connect, but that's what we're shooting for.
That's what we're shooting for. So that's another chance. Like, I'll have copies of Shut Up and Tweet, and I'll write a little love note in it on the front page for you. But yeah, there's lots of times to connect, and that's, very quickly, 30 seconds on the clock, I'll give advice. Don't approach people exactly how you did it. You started with a compliment. And so now I'm listening, Whereas if you go and say, Phil, here's what I want to accomplish, and this is my agenda, and I'm like, if you make it about you, but if someone emails me and they say, Phil, I love your perspective on this, I want to interview you for my podcast, top of my inbox, priority, because you're giving something for me. You started with a compliment. Whereas if people email me and they're like, Phil, I'm graduating, and I would like advice from you. I would like to pick your brain, my least favorite saying. And I'm like, nuh-uh, Phil's got work to do. So think about your approach and make it about the other person, which is what you just did, and I wanted to use you as an example.
Thank you.
Yeah, I look forward to meeting with you and having coffee with you.
Awesome, thank you.
Christy?
And Phil, we have one more online question.
Great.
Wondering, in this day and age, whether there are any particular geographic areas that you recommend being in for the entertainment industry, or whether you think you can do pretty much what you need to from anywhere?
Depends on your brand, depends on the specific service that you offer. I get to dabble in the entertainment industry as much as I want, and I love that because it can be dramatic at times. So I don't have to deal with the politics and the drama so much. My clients have to deal with that, but I get to dabble, and I love that. So obviously New York and LA, Nashville, where else for entertainment? I mean, there's lots of...
Actually, Atlanta, Georgia
is
growing as a mecca for production, film, TV, music.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
I believe our
Texas,
online student
Austin.
was from Miami. Would you recommend that at all?
Yeah, it's going to depend. Oh, totally. I have contacts from Full Sail, actually. My friend Carlos lives in Miami, works in the music business, specifically, I think, in Latin music for a record label. Yeah, I mean, there's opportunities everywhere. You just have to find out where they are and, figure out where you want to live, where you want to work. I hate snow. I'm from Canada, so I was forced to deal with it. But now I live here. Are you kidding me? I love living here.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
So there's one request that Phil has before you guys all
leave. This is
leave.
on my rider, my artist, my talent rider.
He wants a selfie with you guys.
Everyone in it.
So he's going to take it from the stage?
Yeah, so everyone has to get up and come in. So if you're in the middle, you're already there, but I need you in the background. If you can't see the camera can't see you. And congratulations, you're all going to play a starring role in my Instagram feed. Pat, I think you should also be in this. Let me do a few.
I don't want a photobomb.
Yeah, get in here with me. That's a good idea. I actually have one, and I always forget it. Getting a few, just to make sure everyone's in. Thank you!
Yes, thank you guys so much.